Welcome, cycling fans. I hope you're enjoying all the amazing guests that I've been bringing you on the podcast to date. And before we get started, I want to share with you an amazing way that you can coach with me this winter. So if you've been liking all my coaching segments, you're going to love this program. So it's my 16-week online winter road cycling training program. Say that 10 times fast. So I've been doing this program for over 15 years. It's been usually local, but now it's online, which is even more amazing because I can impact more cyclists this way than in studio. The way it works is you're going to learn valuable cycling skills, such as, have you ever asked yourself, first of all, how can I become a smoother, create a more smooth pedal stroke? Like, what are the 4 quadrants all these people have been talking about? And how can I get stronger on the hills? So here's the thing. It really comes down to the fundamentals and the basics skills of cycling, which when you get on your bike, you have nothing, know nothing about. Now this is that, and that's what I'm going to drill into you over 16 weeks. So when you finish, you are going to know how to create a smooth pedal stroke and be more efficient. You're going to be climbing hills with much better technique. You're going to be building your sprint base, and your endurance base is going to be much stronger. Now, I have a special code for you. It's podcast in all uppercase to get $50 off either the VIP or the basic program. Now, go to this website to check out what the differences are. Basically, the VIP is a much greater coaching program. So if you want more personalized coaching, goal setting, and we have a reported 5 to 20% increase in fitness. Can you imagine starting your spring with that kind of increase based on last year? So it's 16wkroadcycling.ca. So that's 16wkroadcycling.ca, and use the code podcast to get $50 off. And if you have questions, just email me. I love to answer them, and I hope and look forward to coaching you to become better on the bike. I hope you enjoy the next episode. Have an amazing day. All right, everyone. Thank you so much for coming back for another amazing episode of Secrets in the Saddle, All Things Cycling Podcast with your host, Sylvie. And this is my first guest from Australia, and I couldn't be more proud to have found this man on Instagram. Rupert Guinness. And the thing about Rupert, and we're going to bring him out in a second, is that he did a pretty epic event this summer. We're going to get deeper into it. It's called Power of the Pedal, Connecting People and Connecting Minds. And I'm just going to read a little bit about this, and then I'm going to bring Rupert out. Okay, so the aim was to boost awareness of mental wellness, well-being, and importance of human communication. And of course, as you well know, we're all in the same boat. COVID has impacted a lot of us in a lot of ways mentally. So this is just a more powerful way to bring awareness. So the vision was making conversation of mental health normal conversation amongst us all. So this is his vision, that nobody is alone in their mental health journey, connecting us to for the better. The mission is to use a vehicle of cycling. And so many people, I don't know about Australia, but so many people got into cycling in the last year and a half because of COVID is just ridiculous. It's like, and it's just a really good way to get around, not to mention like improve our mental health. Connecting the global communities and deliver inspiration, education, and promote the importance of communicating our mental health journey to others. So we are here to heal, accept, grow together in our mental health, and the values we're connecting, communicating, education, family, and love. And he did this event. Rupert is an author. He's a sports journalist and endurance athlete. And we're just going to bring him right on out. He did this event and he cycled across Australia. And we're just going to really dive into this. So thank you so much, Rupert, for coming and making this possible.
Look, thanks a lot, Julie. That's a great intro as well. And yeah, certainly it's been a fascinating bit of a year, despite all the hurdles and challenges of COVID. I've always been a big believer that I understand that people are suffering, really big time. Much, I haven't suffered compared to what other people have. But in the circumstances we have, you have to try and do the best you can with what you've got rather than lament about what you haven't got. And you have to get kind of creative. And if you have the means, I've been trying to put it to good use. And in some ways, as you said, to try and bring a bit of smile into people's homes if that's possible, and maybe, inspire them a little bit and provide some positivity.
Yeah, I was looking, and before we get further into this, make sure you're following myself and Rupert on Instagram, because I was on his page on the Power of the Pedal, connecting people, or maybe it was your personal page, but he had a lot of great videos that he produced when he was doing this event. So it's like day 1, day 2, day 3. I was like, and it was really inspirational to, the more and more I talk to people who are doing events like this, similar to it, maybe not as epic, it just sort of like maybe made me want to go out and try something like that. Maybe not across Canada yet. I got many years.
You say yeah.
But what made you, what first of all, how did you get into cycling? Because I always love the story. And then I love, then we're going to get into like how you decided, like, I guess through your career, has cycling always been a part of your life?
Yeah, look, it's in a nutshell, you have to throw back the years, and I'm 59 now, I'm 60 next year. So going back to, my late teens and early 20s, I used to be a rower. And when I left school, I was too short to be a good heavyweight rower. So I was encouraged to take up lightweight rowing. And so I had to lose a lot of weight. And so cycling became an avenue to sort of, do some extra training. And then in my rowing days, with lightweight rowing, you have to get on the scales all the time and weigh in before you can race, like boxers and jockeys. And the unfortunate thing in that period, I developed bulimia, just from the, I guess it was, I thought it was a shortcut to a way to get to weight, which was the wrong thing to do. And what became an easy means to begin with became not a habit, became an addiction,
Right.
and in many ways it reflected some mental health issues that I've identified since from my formative years. But then throwing forward to cycling, which I enjoyed cycling as exercise, and always have since I was a kid. But one of the things what I did enjoy about cycling was that you eat while you're riding. So for someone who was having an eating disorder, I was able to sort of find a sport where I could eat and eat well, and so that sort of led into what triathlons, did Ironman triathlons, and I was still doing them for a while. And then through that area, I was working as a sports journalist anyway. And I remember I was over in the States for the old Course Classic, and that's where I saw the Course Classic. And I saw Phil Anderson racing there, and then Phil Anderson, who I knew through him becoming the first non-European to get the yellow jersey in the Tour. I had this dream of one day following him in Europe, and one to another. And then I found myself in Europe following the pro cycling scene.
Hey, Rupert, I think it's time for us to cut our videos.
Okay, we'll do that. Yeah. Okay.
All right. Okay.
This will make a difference?
Oh, okay. God, yes. It's all funny. Right. Sorry, guys. We just cut the video. If you're watching on YouTube, or if you're going to catch us on YouTube, we just cut the video. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to fill the whole episode with pictures from Rupert's event. So if you're catching this on YouTube, that's what's going to happen. If you're listening to it, if you want to go You can listen and watch to some pretty interesting pictures. So continue on, Rupert. So it's, you know what, it's funny you said that you started rowing, because I interviewed a gentleman from the UK who started rowing as well because he was a shorter guy. When you said that, I almost, and the same thing, it was funny.
Yeah.
So yeah, so continue on. So
yeah, so I was over in the United States, and I saw the Course Classic in 1986, and I remember then Colorado Springs had the World Road Championships too. So, you know, it was who world cycling was around Colorado at that time, and obviously Phil Anderson, the Australian who was the first non-European to get the yellow jersey back in 1981. I was very much taken in by his story when he achieved that feat in 81, and there he was in real life, and I really thought, wow, as a journalist, I'd love to go over to Europe and first write a book about him, which I've never done since, and but to follow him in the hope that he may get back to his best again, and just to follow the scene. And a job opportunity came up with the old magazine, Winning Magazine, to edit their UK version, and I was based in Brussels in Belgium, and I thought it would be just a 1 year working holiday, see some races, get it out of my system, you know, live the dream. And then that ended up being 9 years of me living over there, and I came back to Australia in 1996. So I was there from 1987 to 1996. And I guess the sport of cycling became my profession. I was the whole circuit, going to every race. I've still been going to the Tour de France since I've come back to Australia, except for the last 2 years because of COVID. But you know, it's very much been a part of my life as a journalist. And
right.
So through all that, I still rode a bit, but that was pretty much, you know, riding in between media buffets and the odd 20 here and there. Was, you know, and I started to get back into Ironman triathlon in the early 90s, and then from there, when I came back to Australia, I was just riding, and it was pretty much in the late 2016 when I left the Sydney Morning Herald. I took a voluntary redundancy and returned to freelancing, and then I guess I could have ended up in a pub just sitting there lamenting my past career, or the other alternative was to do exercise. So I got back on the bike, and suddenly I found myself in the world of ultra distance cycling,
Wow.
which I never thought I would be doing way back in the day when I was working on Winning Magazine.
Oh my gosh. So yeah, but how did you get into ultra cycling? Now, ultra cycling, because there's another term called randonneering. Have you ever heard of that term?
Yes, I have heard of that too. Yeah.
So what's the big difference between the two? Because randonneering is like this, they like ride like 600 kilometers in a day or something ridiculous like that. And then endurance, are you talking like multi-day endurance? Like, what's the difference?
Yeah, well, I guess it's a very broad brush, really. The term ultra is just, I guess I'd put it under the whole. I mean, you could be, you know, pull it apart and find specific differences, but really it's just, you know, mega kilometers or miles, you know, as you said, or bike packing as well, and bike packing. Ultra distance riding, it's the same thing. A lot of kilometers. Obviously, different events have different rules and protocols. So, the goal that I'm aiming for at the moment, what I'm training for, is the race across America. There are specific rules and regulations, and you have to have a support crew, and you have to meet qualifying. You have to qualify for the event, and then you have to pass certain checkpoints within certain times to avoid elimination, and you have to finish with a certain distance and within a certain time. And there's a big rule book of laws of do and don'ts. So that falls into the term of ultra racing. But you know, bike packing has rules as well, and there's certain rules for certain events. So as I said, it's a very broad brush. So I just sort of put the umbrella up and call it the whole thing ultra riding, because I don't like to pitch it. I don't like to pitch myself either, you know, because I think what I love about it is to have an open mind. So to try all and everything. never discount the adventure that a certain event can have. And I think people do miss out on opportunities by limiting what they say is type of rider they are. So
right.
On some days, if I feel bad, an ultra rider is just getting out the door for 20 kilometers. It takes an ultra effort.
Well, yeah, really.
Yeah.
It can't be epic all the time, but I do like the word ultra. Actually, it sounds pretty epic and hardcore.
Yeah. I actually got the real specific of me getting into it because I was writing a book which is called The Power of the Pedal: The Story of Australian Cycling, and that came out in 2018. And in chapter 2 was and the book was all about, not just about racing, it was about how the bicycle arrived in Australia and how it was used and the impact of the bicycle on the social dynamics of the then very young country, notwithstanding how old the country is really with the Indigenous people, but from say a modern Australia or the invaded Australia, the bicycle was very new. And chapter 2 was a chapter called the Overlanders, and the Overlanders were a genre of rider, men and women, who would set off from the far points of Australia, which was then very unknown. The interior wasn't known at all, really. It was just all they could do was follow camel pad tracks, and they'd set off on these bikes with a rack of dry meat, some water, a gun, and a really old bike, and try and just follow the dots in between. Yeah, exactly. Well, yeah, they had to eat and kill whatever they could, or kill whatever they could to eat. Sorry, and then they would just basically follow these camel pad tracks across various directions of Australia through the interior, and very much the road networks that we have today that join the eastern seaboard with the west are attributable to the pioneering epic rides that these cyclists or these people did at the time in the 1890s. So I did a chapter on that, and I remember finishing that chapter thinking, wow, there could be a whole book in this, and these people, just the Overlander riders. And then I finished that manuscript and then sent it to the publisher, and no sooner did I send it than I saw an advertisement in late 2016 for an event called the inaugural Indian Pacific Wheel Race from Fremantle to Sydney, and the long way around, which is about 5,500 kilometres. And it said, "Is there the Overlander in you?" And it was a bit like I guess going into war times, asking, what, you ready to serve your country or something like that. And then I thought, wow, that's the way into the book. Do the Indian Pacific Wheel Race, sort of try to relive what the Overlanders did back in the 1890s, and with this contemporary event. And so I entered it, and then I was, before I knew it, there I was at Fremantle, setting off on a 5,500 kilometre trip into 17, the first one. Unfortunately, that ended tragically when the British cyclist it ended tragically when Mike Hall, the British cyclist, was killed just 300 kilometres south of Canberra, and he was struck by a car. He was in second place, and I was just coming into Adelaide at the time, and I learned about it, and then the event was cancelled there. So I didn't finish that year, but then the next year I came back and did it again, and that was a bike packing event. So that was solo, unsupported. Rules. So that was solo unsupported. So you had to look after yourself, all your own food and accommodation.
So you just ride into so this is where you have to plan your sleeping. There's no set distance from 8 per day. You just go until you're done.
You go until you're done. There's no with the Indian Pacific Wheel Race. There's no time limit. So okay. So you could take as long as you want. The leaders or the winners usually take about 2 weeks. Right. When I finished it in 2018, it took me 27 days. Wow. I was enjoying the spirit of the local public in it. at certain towns. You know, I was trying to indulge into the culture of the town.
Right. So, but there must be some sort of cutoff because people can't sit around at the the finish line for.
No, well, there's no official finish line. The official line
Oh,
is just the steps of the Opera House in Sydney, and so
oh,
yeah, the usual cutoff is how much money you've got left in your wallet to pay for it. You know, to pay
yeah,
for
to get
food.
home.
Yeah, exactly. Some people have had to abandon the event because they've taken leave, and the leave they've taken has come to an end, and they've got to get back to their job, for example. So
Oh my.
it's very much in the spirit of that, but in the world of, say, ultra cycling, a healthy discussion, I'd call it, is, whether the pros and cons between bike packing or solo and unsupported riding and solo supported riding, as in the race across America, where you've got to have a support crew and everything. And I guess as the journalist in me, I thought, well, the best way to find out is to do what I did. The same sort of motivation why I did the Indian Pacific Wheel Race in the first place is to do it myself, and then I'll find out for myself what are the contrasting challenges between solo supported and solo unsupported events. And that was really what sort of tipped me into the first events? Yeah, to find out. I know it's really expensive because you've got to pay for a lot.
Oh yeah. Well, what's expensive, solo or supported?
Solo supported is hugely expensive. For a RAM from Australia, you're looking at a budget of $100,000 US.
Wow.
Because you got to pay for airfares, from Australia for a support crew. That's a big chunk of the budget, but it's very expensive. So you've got to find sponsorship, and obviously sponsorship's hard to find. And but I look at it as a challenge. It's like creating your own little company, really. Because with you and your support crew, you've got to prepare, you've got to train, you've got to do practice rides like we did this year with the ride from Darwin to the Power of the Pedal ride from Darwin to Adelaide. You've got to do all these preparatory events and get your operation going as well as it can be, because once you go to the States from Australia, it's either going to work or it's not, and it's a long way to go for it to not work.
So you would do that solo? Because I know somebody who did it this year, but she was part of like
a team.
I think she had I want to say 6 to 8 people at least. And so what they did is they each biked like 20 minutes or something like that to keep the speed, I imagine.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. There are team classifications in Race Across America as well. Right. So you've got individuals, and then you've got teams of, I think, 2, 4, 6, and 8. I think there's mixed teams. So there's a whole flood of cyclists pedaling across the US every year in June in the Race Across America. So it's exciting. I haven't been there yet, so I have total respect for the event and for people who've done it. Whether they do it as a team or not. From what I've heard, as a team, every rider who's doing their shift on the bike, they're probably riding much harder and faster than say a solo rider would be, obviously. Yeah. But so even within the Race Across America, the challenges are also different. I'll never say any challenge is harder than the other, because I think with any challenge you take in life, the challenge is what it is. And I think you respect a challenge, whether it's doing a 10K running race, or whether you're doing a triathlon. It's still, you're trying to do the best you can in that event, aren't you? So the enormity of the challenge really shouldn't change, because you're taking something on where you're trying to do the best you can. And that's really the ultimate goal, isn't it? As long as we do the best we can in something.
So talk to me more about, or talk to me about the awareness for mental well-being, because this is so let's go back to your summer event, like the Power of the Pedal, and deciding to do that and making it kind of like an awareness event. Because it looked like you had really planned, your Instagram page is really cool with all those little videos. Talk to me more about that. Like, what drove you to I know this is kind of like a training phase because you're going to go to the States and you're going to do that solo, right? You're
Yeah.
not part of a team. So this is like a lead up to, and I want to know how you felt. Like,
Yeah.
let's talk about saddle
Okay.
sores. No, just kidding.
Yeah. Actually, I didn't touch wood. I didn't get a saddle sore. There we are.
Oh,
I did have a sore ass, but I didn't have a saddle sore. But that doesn't mean I never will. I know that. I'm
yeah, I
trying to
know.
find some wood here to touch. But
Like they come and go as they please, I find.
yeah, I know. I think the first thing I found out about the power of the pedal ride, it was I guess the challenge was I was trying to simulate RAM or race across America, but at the same time push a campaign. There's the power of the pedal awareness campaign, and it was very hard to do both at once. It's two mindsets. If you're racing,
Right.
you're focused on racing,
Right.
and obviously when this ride became was a mental well-being campaign. Stopping and starting for interviews. You can't do that in Race Across America. That was the number one lesson I learnt. I'll have to do reorganize my awareness program. So when I do go to Race Across America, it's just for the race. Just everything else is done, and hopefully your performance will help lever the messaging that you've done already forward. But the reason what got my mindset about power of the pedal, I think goes back to when I was a kid. When I was just a tacker, and I was I was a roly-poly sort of kid. I was never good at the cool sports at school. I used to always drop the ball. I would, I couldn't play tennis, couldn't play cricket. Even in rugby, my position was as a tight head prop, and they never passed the ball to me. So I was always, I think, I became lacked some self-esteem, or a lot of self-esteem, and that sort of built in my school years. So I was trying to find something to do that I could be different and better at than what others were doing, and that led me to endurance sports. Hence,
Right.
I got into rowing, and everyone used to make jokes about the rowers. Always training, always running, always rowing. And the sport that you go backwards in. I've heard all the jokes, but it sort of empowered me. It empowered me in some ways to do something. And obviously, I think the self-esteem issues I had sort of followed me through a lot of my life, and I think that's where the bulimia even came into it. Because even though when I was a lightweight rower, I was a heavy lightweight, so I was too short to be a good heavyweight rower, but I was a large lightweight rower. So there was always fighting weight, and everyone's making jokes about you looking. They'd say, "Oh, you're looking fat today, Rupert," and they'd be pinching you in the side, and it's all said in jest, but when you're the receiving end of comments like that over and over and over and over, it does compound. The impact does compound, and if you've got self-esteem issues, then suddenly you've got body image issues, and then suddenly it's become an obsession. And next thing, you're not just getting on the scales every 2 days just to check. You're getting on the scales every hour of the day. You like your food, but the next thing you're regurgitating it. I remember even doing it, having a bout of it, at the start of a race, and which doesn't make sense. I mean, the moments it happens, it doesn't make sense. And my self-esteem issues sort of followed me through all my life, and I've seen a pattern even just in recent years of how and where in work and everything, where it's followed me. And the bulimia is still, I still wrestle with it today. So it's still something I have to be on top of. And so being open about it obviously helps me, because I think it helps you sort of get your head around the irrationality of it, but it does make sense when you talk about it. But at the same time, I don't believe I'm the only person who suffers from self-esteem and bulimia, and obviously there's other mental health issues that other people struggle with as well. So I figured, while I've got this platform as a journalist, albeit I'm a freelance journalist now, I don't have a full-time job, but while I have the platform and my love of ultra riding, it all came together, and I thought, well, I'm pretty lucky to have this platform, and I'd like to use it, obviously to help me get to RAM and to do other events for my own pleasure, but I'd like to use it, if I can, in a way to have a platform to create the discussion, to keep the discussion going about mental health and well-being, and to try and encourage people not to be shy to talk about their issues. And that's where we say connecting people, connecting minds. If you can connect people to talk, that's the first step. And I'm not saying it's a magic wand, and I'm not a professional in this, but I'm just a human being who's willing to talk about it as openly as I can. And even then, it's a two-way street. Being able to talk to someone about it, it's helping me, and hopefully me helping them. And so when we did the ride, the Power of the Pedal ride, it was originally going to be from Darwin to Hobart, 4,900 kilometres, the same distance as Race Across America. But again, COVID stopped us going through the state of Victoria and then ultimately to Hobart in Tasmania because the borders were closing down in Australia. So we were very fortunate that we actually got to Adelaide. We went through Uluru, Ayers Rock, which was a 550 kilometre dog's leg add-on to the trip. And we did some other areas down in South Australia. So we managed to still get 3,700 kilometres or something, which we were very lucky with because the borders were starting to shut down as we were moving along, sort of. And so that was really a platform to use that. And we found along the trip, wherever we went, we just bumped into people in the outback of Australia who would say they heard that we were out in the road somewhere. The truckies would be, on the radios. They would say they'd heard what we're doing.
Cool.
The first night we went up outside Catherine. We were about 400 kilometres into the ride, and suddenly there was a whole lot of backburning by the fireys to try and control the areas for bushfires and stuff. But next thing, I'm riding through a bushfire, a controlled bushfire though, in the middle of the night, and there's one fiery talking to the next saying, "Oh look, watch out, these everything's okay, just watch out for the cyclist." And the other guy goes, "The cyclist? What's he doing here?" And then our support crew chip in and say, yeah, we're with the Power of the Pedal, we're doing for mental well-being. And then they said, "Oh look, great initiative, all the best." And then they escorted us through the fire zone that we're riding through. So,
oh wow!
And there was another time near Uluru where I think I finished late. Obviously, it was dark when I went to have a sleep. And next morning when I got up, I was standing near a blue tree. I mean, blue trees, you don't usually see blue trees, but I was just standing. And someone said, "Do you know the story of the Blue Tree Project, Rupert?" And I said, "No, I don't." And the Blue Tree Project is an initiative where areas or towns or houses in the outback of Australia, if that area has been impacted by suicide, they'll paint a tree blue. And so obviously where we'd stopped coincidentally was an area impacted by suicide. And so there was an initiative that we were able to tap into there with mental well-being and mental health. Right. And people, we didn't organise anything, just people just came out, or fate led us towards places where people had heard about the story in our ride. And it very much confirmed to me that, okay, the race scenario is not in place here for RAM, but we're actually making a difference. And it really hit me hard in a positive way. And I thought, gosh, this is really, it sounds cliched, if you can impact one person, you can make a difference, but it really was real. And the country folk of Australia are, like a lot of country folk around the world, they struggle with elements of drought, fire, all sorts of plagues and things like that, but they always look at a positive side, but they still do suffer very more badly, from mental well-being and mental health issues, and ultimately suicide. So, I was just a bike rider riding across Australia, and I felt very humbled to have that opportunity to do that. And the documentary, we've got a documentary that's airing next week in Australia on SBS television, Who Followed Us. And that will be available internationally. So I can get the details of that for you later, Sylvie. But
yes, that would be awesome, because your episode will air after. So if there's a link for people to watch it that you can provide, that would be great.
Yeah, I'd love to. There's a lot of stuff which was in some of those because like I said, the SBS crew were following us. They and also my media social team both of them did their own videos, and that's where a lot of those short videos came up on Instagram. And then they sort of compiled them together, edited them, and put a nice narrative through it all. So it's amazing what you can do. But you got to have good people around you to help you. Obviously, as you know, Sylvie, it's doing things just on your own is very hard.
Yeah, I have a women's cycling club, and it's been for the last 13 years. And I have to say, surrounding yourself with the right people certainly does make things a lot easier, and just runs better. And I've had some years where just the wrong people showed up, and I don't know why, but do you know what I mean? Like,
yep.
And you're just like, God, you can't do anything about them, but hope that they don't bring down your whole organization.
Yes.
And just hope they don't come back the year after, just like, oh, you're not really welcome back. No, but I do understand. So now, have you thought of making this like an annual event for yourself? Like, I mean, would you do this every year to raise awareness and make it like a national thing in Australia?
Well, I'm not sure I'd do exactly the same route, because as beautiful as going through the heart of Australia, and as beautiful as Uluru is, and it's a very long, boring highway down through the guts of Australia. And now I've done Fremantle to Sydney, and that's west to east, and now I've done north to south. But what I would like to do, and this is something I'm still yet to work out how to do it, and I probably will need support and people to do it, but I would like to make the Power of the Pedal, Connecting People, Connecting Minds initiative, not just based on one ride. I'd like to make it a living and breathing entity that's I guess can be monetized, obviously, because I need to live, but also to make it a platform that does, that it's ticking over around the clock 24/7, really. And then we do target sort of adventures, and the ride could be, someone can come up with an idea for another ride, and we'll do that as well, so I'm certainly open, and I don't think it should be bound by just Australia. I think you can take it, again, don't put blinkers on yourself. I'd like to take Power of the Pedal to Canada. Why not? Why can't we do that?
Well, but you could probably use Clara Hughes's, because she biked across Canada for mental health, and she stopped. I mean, she stopped and did talks, and we are lucky enough to actually see her in Ottawa when she came into one of our local towns of Arnprior. And it was so fun. We got pictures with her, and she did a talk, and then she continued on. So like, she had these stops where people would just like congregate, and they were all organized, and that might be and then it's still her Bell Let's Talk is still like a thing, like every year. They raise money. And Bell Canada is our big telecommunications company.
Okay.
So that, I mean, her model would be right up your alley for making it something. I mean, she just took a year to do that. She's not doing that every year, but she did talks and travel around, and is still, I guess, a figurehead for it with Bell Canada. So.
Oh, no, that's very interesting, because you've got me thinking now too, because I noticed that even in the Power of the Pedal ride, like, once I actually, when we went to Uluru just the day before, I came down with a condition called Sherman's neck, which is where you basically lose you can't lift your head. It's not painful, but the muscles in the back of your neck or in the shoulders, they get to a state where basically your head, you just can't lift it. It's a very heavy thing, the head. I never knew it was that heavy.
It's 30 pounds.
I know, gosh. And and unfortunately, I was able to have it managed, and I was able to finish. But can't remember. I was going to mention that. Oh yeah, that's right. Because at that point I was still tracking, along my daily average. I was aiming for. I was trying to get 400 kilometers plus a
Oh
day
my
for
God, a
12 days.
day?
Yeah, that was. And then the Sherman's neck put me way behind schedule, and that was part of the reality check that, obviously I have to fix my neck up. It was a positional issue on my bike with the aero bars. I had it set up. This sounds really stupid, but I had it set up well for a 40K time trial, but a 4,000 kilometer time trial, nah. And but anyway, so we were way behind schedule. There was a point there I thought we were going to have to pull the pin, and I got quite emotional about it all, and it was like something I felt. Again, the self-esteem issues came. I felt embarrassed. I thought, this is, I'm going to look like a fool and all this. But then we thought, let's just manage it, and we still had the the campaign. We said, hey, we still got to deliver this message. So once we tapped into that, and sort of almost like took some of the pressure off me mentally, and then things came good again. Like suddenly things started coming good again. But we had a couple of days where we did less kilometres, and when we couldn't make it to Hobart, we thought we'd go down an area called the Eyre Peninsula, down the west side of Adelaide, and we went there for a couple of days. And my crew chief, he used to live as a kid in this town called Whyalla, and he said, "Oh, look, let's go and visit Whyalla." And I was going, "Yeah, whatever. We just keep riding. Doesn't matter. I don't mind where we go. Let's just keep riding." And then he just rang ahead to the Whyalla Cycling Club, as you do, and he managed to get the president. And he said, "Oh, we're the Power of the Pedal ride. We're just going to come into Whyalla." And the guy said, "Oh, look, we'll open up the velodrome for you. When will you?"
Oh, cool.
So they opened the velodrome up for us, and they got a whole bunch of people just to turn up. And there we were on the velodrome at Whyalla, and people were there, and I gave an impromptu talk, and they weren't expecting me to turn up, but they loved that we did. And there were stories of mental health and well-being challenges that people were having. All the stories that come. And suddenly I thought, wow, here I was, down and out, lamenting why we couldn't go finish the ride. But, now fate has directed us towards Whyalla, where we never even thought of going to. And here I am at this velodrome, which was named after a former Olympian. And here I am giving a talk, and you think the bigger picture impact of what you're doing. And again, it was my banner, the Power of the Pedal, that took me there, So I'm really, honestly, so grateful about the bicycle and what it can do and what it can take you to discover. And the look on their faces when they didn't expect us even turning up, and they'd read some of my stories from the Tour de France and stuff, but they felt it was nice to be able to sort of meet the person behind the byline. But I was even more happier, I think, than they were, because I just thought of it just reinforced to me this commitment that I want to do for Power of the Pedal beyond just that one ride. So if I can find a way or garner the support, and I definitely don't want to, like I said, I'm not blinkered about it staying in Australia. I'd love to take it anywhere where we can go to, just to tell a message. And to engage with people, so just get people talking and riding.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Because it's amazing how the bike has saved a lot of people's lives. Do you know what I mean? Like I've interviewed quite a few people who've had that statement that just getting on the bike changed their life forever. And do you think, like, if you're to do something like that, it's not just about the miles, it's about who you meet along the way, and stopping in those little towns. And like every town, I'm sure, has a bike club that would just welcome you in, or and help you along with that trip. That's really cool.
We did a sort of a dry run on it last year, after we did the virtual race across America in the garage.
That must have been brutal.
Yeah, that was crazy brutal. And but then we did a thing. We just called it an outreach tour, and we just, because it was like a template. We were trying to see what we could do and how we do it. So we got the motorhome, and we just went out to a regional country town called Bathurst. And I rang ahead and told the cycling club, this is what we'd like to do. So we did that. We just did a meet and greet. Went to the club country velodrome on the Friday night when they have racing, just sort of said hello to people. And then we had an impromptu ride the next day where people came, and as you said, people start telling you all their stories of some really tragic stories, but the positivity that they've gained since. And then we did a talk that late afternoon, to people to come and just engage with each other. And I told my story about my mental health issues and my bulimia and self-esteem and how it still goes through. And then, if you can say that helps the atmosphere to feel more relaxed, where people can hopefully share their experiences. And it's a simple formula, but sometimes the best things are the most simplest things, aren't they? The most powerful. And then we had another ride the Sunday morning, and then we left, and we returned back to Sydney. And I thought, wow, you could just, it was such a simple thing to do. It just took a few people to open their doors and then open their hearts and souls. When we got there, and the other thing was not to sort of, I'm not going there preaching a message. I'm going there just to listen and to talk, because it's their town, their country, and you're not there to sort of impose on them. I'm just there to sort of visit and to learn from them. And I said, also for me living in the city, it's important to be able to learn what the struggles and challenges people in the country are having. And if I can become better educated on that, I'll become more aware back in the city, so I can pass that message on too. The disconnect between country and the city areas, I think around the world, that's always going to be an issue to address. And again, if you can be a city guy who drinks his lattes down at the supermarket on a Friday morning, but then go out to the country and drink just hot black tea and stand around a bushfire at night, you're helping to bridge.
Which one's more fun? Tell me.
I know. I prefer the bushfire.
Yeah,
not
me
the
too.
Not the bushfire. The country, not the bushfire. Sorry, that's how to control the bushfire. But you know what I mean. The fire.
Yes, the fire
the long
pit.
Fire. Yeah, the fire pit. So
the fire pit.
Again, another simple thing. That's all. Just got to give yourself time to do it.
So what are you doing now? So you have an event now. Are you going to have more than one event to showcase your I guess it's not a movie, or documentary?
Oh yeah. Well, it'll be on TV next week.
Right.
And then we will be having a Power of the Pedal talk night as soon as we can with the COVID restrictions here. It was meant to be in August, but we've been locked down now since the beginning of July. So, pubs and restaurants, everything's been shut down, and it's only just about to start opening up a little bit, but very restricted. Like, you still can't go to pubs or restaurants at the moment, and you can only, like cycling, only this week you're allowed to ride with 4 other people, so long as they're from your same local government area, and all people are double vaccinated. But otherwise, you had to ride in pairs and within 5-kilometre radius and local government area restrictions. So the initiatives that we were hoping to do, we haven't been able to do since, really. But we do have one scheduled for a talk night with videos and photos. One of my support crew, he's a photographer, and he's working on a coffee table book that he wants to
very cool.
publish. He's got some great photos of outback Australia, so not just all of me. it's the
I was going to say, in various states of discomfort.
Yeah, various states of discomfort. Or in some of his photos, I'm just a little dot in this large expanse of sort of wilderness. But so I'll probably
I bet you could get. I bet you could get any. Lots of photographers to go for a free trip just to take pictures. I mean, what else are you going to do?
Yeah, it's amazing how vast and remote Central Australia is, but at the same time, how beautiful it is.
Right.
Well, I see the beauty more now when I see the photos than what I felt at the time, but it's just, it is quite remarkable.
Yeah, you're
And,
like, oh, I don't care how gorgeous that is. Where the hell are we stopping and what's for supper?
yeah.
Yeah, I could see that. I'd be like, that's why you need to document everything so I can go back and see what I missed when my head was down.
Yeah. Actually, that's what I did when I did the Indian Pacific wheel race. I actually wrote a book on it called Overlander, and it's basically on the 2 rides I did on it, but most of it's on that first one that unfortunately, obviously, ended with Michael's tragic death. But it wasn't about the death; it was more of the it was more like a chronicle, a day-to-day chronicle of my experiences when I was a total rookie in this ultra riding. I made every mistake you can think of, but I actually at the time I did live Facebooks because I thought I'm gonna
really?
Yeah, and I thought I'm gonna document all this, and I don't care whether I'm having a bad moment or I look stupid or whatever. I just want it to be real. So I did live Facebooking, and I didn't look at I didn't have time to look at all the responses, but I thought when I write the book, this will be better than having no notepad and writing notes, because I'll be able to look back and see my state of mind and body, the conditions, and I'd see the responses on Facebook, which would help trigger my memory for the narrative that I was writing. So that's a really good way to do it.
Oh, that's brilliant.
Yeah. There's some shocking videos though, like it's kind of embarrassing thinking about some of them now.
Like looking the best after a day of 10 hours of riding or 12.
Yeah.
You're like, you got like your windswept or faces burnt and dirt and some bugs in your eyes.
Yeah. All of those.
Yeah. So so where can people find your books? Are they on Amazon?
Yeah, look, they're on Amazon,
all right.
and I'm pretty sure they're all on Amazon. If you just go up to Rupert Guinness and on Amazon or Bookatopia, and I do find them online, even if you just type them in. And so I've written about 15 books. Most of them are on cycling. I've done a rugby book, a World War II book, but most of them are on cycling from the professional days that I covered, with the Tour de France, Cadel Evans, some annuals I wrote in the Winning Magazine days, and I've done a couple of books about the story of Australian cycling, or following Aussies in the Tour de France.
That'd be pretty cool. Like, which one is the one you're talking about? The history of cycling.
Oh yeah.
Is that the most recent one?
Yeah, that's called Power of the Pedal.
Okay, so that's the current one.
Yeah, that's the current. That came out in 2018, and Overlander, because Overlander is the book that came out after Power of the Pedal, because that was the book that was inspired by that chapter on the Overlanders in the Power of the Pedal book. So they're the last 2 books that I wrote.
I think those would be really interesting to read, like the history.
Yeah. No, I did. It was the history book. I remember when I wrote it, I was taken aback by how deep the history of Australian cycling is, and I remember thinking that for so many years people used to, when I was in Europe, people would talk about Australian cycling and how Australia is not a big cycling country, and we're just a minnow in the world of cycling, or historically have been. And then when I wrote this book, it dawned on me how it's totally the opposite, and the history of Australian cycling is really very rich, and it's also unique because with the elements like the Overlander riders I spoke about, and if you look at it from a broader sense, Australia is very much a cycling country. I would think Canada probably is too. I mean, Canada's a huge country. I'm sure there was, it'd be interesting to find out, Sylvie, were there Overlanders in Canada? A bicycle was easier to look after than a horse. You don't have to feed a horse, do you? It's right. I'd be interested to know in Canada if cyclists sort of set off on these massive rides and discovered a lot of the interior of the country in the day, because it was.
I have to look into that, but I'm going to get yours because I think that would, since I started my podcast, I've interviewed 3 people so far who have books, and I've read one completely because it was easy to read. The other 2, honestly, one is a documentary of this gentleman's life he escaped World War II from Romania and came over to Canada.
Wow.
And it's very detailed. And I'm like, I don't know how he did it. Anyways, I know him personally. And then Catherine Bertine's Stand, which is it documents like the women's Tour de France and how like back in 84 to now it's coming back next year. And that's extremely detailed. And I'm like, like it's small letters and you know what I mean? But it's taken me a while. So, but very interesting. I mean, like, because I can relate to a lot of this. I can relate to a lot of the things because I started racing. She started racing in 2005 at a higher level, and that's when I started racing. And so she just accounts like all of these events, like with regards to UCI racing and Europe and France, Tour de France and everything. And I was just like, wow. And then Peters is, I know him. So, and I know his kids, and he has a family sporting business, Kuhnstats here in town, who I know, and I've purchased bikes there and stuff. And so, anyways, but they're very interesting, and I enjoy reading these cycling books. So that's why
the Power of the Pedal book, I've it's sort of broken down into sort of manageable chunks, so you don't have to read.
Yes, I like that.
You can put it down and pause and have a breather for a couple of days, So I
you put some of your
series of stories.
This is good.
I'm not sure the humor. There's a bit of. Hopefully, there's a bit more me in the Overlander book than the Power of the. There's a bit of me in the history book because you have to.
It's a history book. That's right.
But history is kind of interpretive anyway, isn't it?
Right.
So if you've got a bit of you in it, you actually sort of in some ways you're explaining why someone may question an interpretation of events or a period, and that's my interpretation. And that's how I've sort of stressed it. So there is a bit of me in there too. So because how we all interpret things can be different, and I think. For me, it was also a discovery very much of this history as well, which I should have known about. I thought I should have known since I spent 30 plus years covering the sport as a journalist. But then I realized I spent so much time focused on professional road racing and track racing that is such a minuscule part of the sport of cycling, really. The bicycle cycling is a bigger part than the Tour de France. The Tour de France is the biggest race in the world, but it's a part of a sport. Cycling is not a part of the Tour de France, and you can get that can get lost, in the hype and the narrative of the event. I think, or maybe it's my awareness. This ultra distance stuff has made me more broad-minded about it all.
I don't know, but I think you're bang on where a lot of people it's Tour de France and expensive bikes and there's just so much more to it. All right. So I think is there anything else that you want to share about your book or next year's event right now?
Only that, when I do, I'm going to keep this narrative of the story of the Power of the Pedal going, and I'm certainly open to any ideas or initiatives to help me do that. As I said, you can't do anything alone. And but I'm also so much focused on Race Across America from the performance side of things now. So I've got to compartmentalize the two aside from each other in some ways, just so I'm as well prepared as I can be for RAM.
Yeah.
It's such a hard event. It's in some ways I'm glad I didn't go over 2 years ago, because I don't think I would have been ready for it. I don't think I would have been ready for it this year. I think I've been blessed in some ways that I've been able to come up with these other sort of, some people say crazy rides, but rides with purpose that help me prepare and learn. A lot of the learnings through, as you know, Sylvie, a lot of the learning comes through the mistakes you make rather than in the good days. And I think I'm glad I've had all that, and but I'm really looking forward. I'm as enthusiastic about RAM as I ever have been. And
cool. Well, you are getting closer to me, so you might never know.
Yeah. We'll have to pop up. We'll have to get up to Canada then, eh?
Yes, I think so, because I want to say do you know where you finish? Because I think
we finish in RAM finishes in Annapolis in Maryland.
Oh, Maryland. Okay, so that's near New York. So that's I would say Maryland's probably about 7 hours from me. Maryland, okay, yeah. Maybe longer.
What riding time or
like
driving time?
Driving time. Yeah, no. No, Maryland. No, it's not that far, but it's far.
Like I'm actually I'm really fortunate to have American sponsor though too. Which is great.
Good.
A company called Wagner Roofing, and they're based in Maryland. So
I saw that.
They're one of my main sponsors, and Dean Yagush, who's the president and owner of the company, he is the nephew of a cycling club mate of mine here in Sydney.
Wow!
And that's how the union happened. And Dean used to be a triathlete who raced over in the States, and then he got into, I guess, his afterlife in business, and now he's married, and now he owns Wagner Roofing, and he's really on board on the mental health and well-being, and they've been running in correlation with the Power of the Pedal campaign, an internal Fit Body, Fit Minds campaign, where a lot of their staff have taken up cycling and encouraged it. And so a lot of some of our videos have been sort of, shout outs to the crew at Wagner, and they've sent messages back to me. And it's really, again, it's just that connectivity that you get from across the world. And it really is genuine connectivity. It's just, and so I'm absolutely super motivated by the thought of, I guess in some ways, I'm riding into a home. Hopefully, I'll be riding into a home finish in Annapolis. Where the Wagner crew will be there. So it's just fantastic, the synergy that you can create in sport. I think just by connecting, and as we are now, Sylvie. It's a great opportunity.
I know this is well, I will spread the word as much as you can. So what do you need then for this event? Is there anything else? Because I think I saw you're still looking for sponsors, or were you going to help people find sponsorship? Because I'm like, I could use some help. So I'm like, what's this message mean?
No, I'm definitely looking for sponsors. I'm looking for sponsorship, and but through the sponsorship, I'm really definitely committed to wanting to help the message of mental well-being and health. And I think, to try and create as much connectivity between myself and my crew and the sponsor. So it's not, it's a two-way communication. It really is a partnership where I want to be able to help not just the brand with brand awareness, etc., in the public domain, but to help the people and families within those companies. And if my messaging can help internally and within their companies to bring positivity, I'd love to do that and do whatever it takes to do it. With internal rides, talks, gatherings. And if it means after RAM, for RAM we'll come over before to get ready. We'll probably go to Borrego Springs and get ready there before we start, and then. But if after RAM there's opportunities to pursue after, as part of any arrangements, I'm happy to hang around and still
Well, you
put in.
should
Yeah,
hang
I'd love
out
to do that.
for a little while in the US.
No, I
And if
definitely
you
would love to do
can,
that.
travel up to Canada and
Yep,
go to Montreal or Toronto, and yeah.
yep. And it's all part, of taking this power of the pedal beyond Australia. So it's a great opportunity to do it. And I think that we'll be able to travel more then. Touch wood. Don't want to get too far
Yeah,
ahead of
really.
myself, but
Seriously. Seriously. So where can they find you? Obviously, we were talking about Instagram. That's probably the main spot, but is there a couple websites that people can check
yes,
check you out?
I've got my personal website, just rupertguinness.com.au.
Okay.
So it's RUPERTGUINNESS.
Like Guinness.
Yeah.
Everybody's on Guinness beer.
And .au on the end as well.
So,
And
yeah,
I'm on Facebook.
right.
At Rupert.Guinness. That's my cycling power of the pedal Facebook. And I'm on Twitter as well.
Oh.
Good old Twitter.
A lot of people on Twitter, amazingly, especially a lot of racers. But so all these links will be in our show notes, so you can definitely go there to access any of them. I will actually put the links for his books on Amazon, so if anybody wants to go grab a couple of those, I'm sure that will help as well. But I just want to say thank you. I don't know if you have any parting words of wisdom before we finish.
Sylvie, look,
you can lay on us, Rupert.
Yeah. Look, it's been great to be talking to you today, and I know we've been talking for a long time now. So I'm glad we've done it, and I really look forward to coming over to North America next year. Not just to the US, but to Canada. I've been to Canada a few times, and I love the country. I love Canadians.
Hey.
There's a lot of similarity between Canadians and Australians. So I think, any time to be able to come and, meet people, that'd be great. And I know with there's the whole world's in a lot of seeming chaos at the moment, but I find the best thing to do is to try and simplify things and appreciate what you have in the day rather than what you haven't got, and that can range from opportunities to friends. And if you can't contact them face to face, you can still contact them through Zoom or phone calls. Just try and be creative and imaginative, and but still at the same time stay healthy. The COVID is awful, and it is something that I think we can all do individually to try and minimise the impact of it, but to help each other. So if you can help one person, you're going to help them help somebody else. So I try and look at the positive side of stuff.
I love it.
When the sun shines, it's glorious here in Sydney. Not a cloud in the sky, and it's early spring, and it's probably going to get back to about 23, 24 degrees Celsius. So for me, it's the days. I've done a circuit session. I've had a good chat with you, Sylvie, today, and
yeah, you have a good rest of your day. Yeah. I am going to go to bed. No.
Oh yeah, good luck in your race tomorrow, in the gravel race. Okay, rip in.
Oh, thank you. Hey, it's 8 hours. It's not like as long as yours, but
that's long enough. The first 8 hours are the hardest.
Yeah, the first 8 hours. You're hilarious. Well, I'm not a stranger to endurance races myself. I've done some adventure racing. My longest one was 8 days. So
oh my gosh.
I've been out, but not on the bike for 8 days. That makes a big difference. So like hiking, paddling, mountain biking, rappelling. So it's so I'm, when I looked at that, I was like, and it's a circuit. So it's a 27K loop. You do as many loop as you can in 8 hours. So I was like, I can do that. Anyways, you just follow me on Instagram, Rupert, because I'm going to try and, there's no Wi-Fi there for the event, but I will be taking all sorts of videos, I'm sure, while I'm riding, because I usually do that.
Okay, I'll look forward to that.
But thank you to all of our listeners for catching this episode. And please if you know of somebody who would benefit from this discussion on mental health and wellness, please share this with them. And I want to thank you. And don't forget to follow both of us and the podcast on Instagram. And maybe we'll just pop off here take our videos. See if I'm still awake. Are you? Oh, there you are. Let's say goodbye to each other. Maybe I'll even take a picture. Hold on.
Okay.
We'll have to do this while we're on live. But not pee. All right. Yay. Oh my God. Awesome.
Good one.
All right. Thank you, everybody. Have an amazing evening and a weekend, and make sure you ride your bike and have a good evening. Thanks, Rupert.
Thanks, Sylvie. Ciao, ciao. See ya.
Okay.